Yeah. Thanks for pointing that out, by the way. Okay. I'll change that. And I think that's true for, yeah, that's true for most of the previous calls as well. So someone forgot to edit it, and that someone was me. Okay, so hello everyone. Welcome to Meshery Build and Release call. This call takes place every other week, every second and fourth Thursday. And but since we had a lot of newcomers this week, I think newcomers call was also packed. So it was advised that we have a short call today. There will be another call which is scheduled next week as well. This time, that's why you don't see a lot of things going on in the agenda items, because that's for next call. This call will be primarily for introducing people to what we talk about in the CI call, and what are the areas that you can contribute to when it comes to things related to CI or documentation or build and release stuff, or GitHub workflows, end-to-end test, unit test, all those things. So there will be a quick overview about those things from Abhi's sides, who is the Meshery UI maintainer. He'll talk about Cypress tests and how you can contribute to them if you have interest in those. And then I'll talk about few of the existing agenda items for the two agenda items that we have today. These were the items for the next week, but if we get to them, then we can discuss them today only. And before I even start with the standing agenda item, which is to let you know about the Meshery test plan, it is highly encouraged that we start with introductions. So I think we have a lot of people who are new to this call today, since I tagged on the newcomers channel. So whoever wants to introduce themselves, you can get off the mic and uh, you can introduce yourself. Anyone? Or should I start calling names? If you have already introduced yourself in a newcomers call, then this shouldn't be hard for you. So if you have any mic issues, then you can always introduce yourself in the chat if this is your first time on the call. I'll take few names before I go on, so that at least there are a few introductions, just like we have on the dev.
First.
Yeah, go ahead, Arunima.
Yeah, so hello everyone. My name is Arunima Chaudhary. I'm a final year computer science undergrad, and I'm pursuing my bachelor's from Kolkata, India. And I have been contributing to Layer 5 for around 5 months now. And my contributions is mainly on the front-end projects like layer5.io website and meshery.io website. And apart from that, I've also written a few blogs. And I have been an MLH fellow, and I'm also a technical coach at meetup.org. So yeah, that's about me. Thank you.
Thank you, Arunima. That was a nice introduction. So I think Tarun, it's your first time as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So would you like to introduce
yesterday I joined the call, but this build and release meeting, this is my first time. So hello everybody. I'm Tarun Chawla. I'm a software engineer currently pursuing my master's in America, and I'm in New York. So, and I have 1 year of experience and looking to contribute to Meshery as well. This is my new project looking to contribute. Thank you so much.
Okay. So what are your areas of interests, like UI, Golang, or?
Yeah, front end, and apart from that, like CI, Golang, I have to learn those. Like I am willing to learn those, and while I learn those, and I can contribute to them as well, like good first issues and all of those things.
Have you worked on GitHub workflows before?
No, you mean GitHub Actions?
I mean, yeah, GitHub Actions.
Yeah, no, I haven't.
Okay.
But
okay.
Yeah, if somebody wants to sit and give me a walkthrough of Meshery project, because it's a little like deep. I cannot understand it through the documentations because I haven't gone through the DevOps side of like Docker, Kubernetes, or Mesh. So that's why it's a little confusing in the beginning. That's
Okay, so to that, the first thing I would like to point out, which is for you and for everyone, is that Meshery is very loosely coupled with all the components, all like Kubernetes or the service meshes, which has an upside for contribution as well, which is to say that you don't really need to know about Kubernetes, and even about service meshes if you just want to get started. Of course, as your contributions get more and more specific, it would be helpful if you knew about those things. But on surface, like if you are just dipping your toe in, so for example, if you start contributing from Meshery CTL, which is the command line tool, is the command line client for Meshery, there you don't need to know anything about Kubernetes. You just need to know some Golang, and if you know basics of how Cobra framework works, you're good to go there. Same way in the UI side, you don't need to know everything about anything actually. I mean, you just because in a big project, generally you need to know how a specific component work, and if you have a general idea about how that is plugged into the rest of the system, you can just isolate that and work on that. So when you get intimidated by a large project, I would suggest that you take one single small issue and then start from there, start unraveling from there. I'll try to give an overview of, like, I'll talk about adapters and what Meshery adapters are and how Meshery server talks to those and what are end-to-end tests. When I'll discuss those things, you'll kind of get an idea. And if you haven't already gone through there's a Meshery architecture deck. So these are Google slides, and inside of Google slides, the whole Meshery architecture is laid out of what component talks to what component. And if you don't have already the link for that, I'll paste it in the chat. Once someone else is talking other than me, I'll do that. So you can go through slides and you can get an idea from there. So so yeah, that was about that. Anyone else would like to introduce themselves?
Thank you
Yeah,
so much. That was a great up point. Thank you so much.
Okay, yeah, sure.
yeah, I'll go next.
Hello.
Yeah, Abhishek, you can go next.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so my name is Abhishek, and I'm a software engineer with about 1 year and 8 months of experience. And I mainly I'm a full stack developer. I've worked in React, and in the backend I work in Spring Boot, and I have a bit of hands-on on Node.js and CI/CD stuff as well. So this is my first open source project that I'm contributing to. So yeah, that's about me.
Okay, so have you already gotten your hands on any of the issues, or are you still looking for them?
I'm still looking for it. Like, I cloned the repository, and I was going through the project. Like, I was able to like run the project locally. I'm yet to like go through the issues.
Okay, okay. Thanks for that. Was a great introduction. I hope you get your hands on some of the issues by next dev call at least. So let's see. Anyone else would I think someone else also was speaking, and
Hello.
yeah.
Yeah. Hello. Myself Harshit Paneri. I am currently in pre-final year of my CS engineering, and I have experience in open source contributions and freelancing, and I am already completed my 2 to 3 month internship in last month, and I have knowledge of monolithic development and UI UX.
Okay, okay.
Thank you.
That was that was a mouthful. Thanks for the introduction, Harshit. And so, if anyone else want to introduce themselves, there's this. I'd wait for 5 to 7 seconds before we move on.
Yeah, so I would like to go. So, hey everyone, my name is Karan Thakur, and I've been contributing in the Layer 5 community for a month now. I've been contributing in the in the UI related stuffs. Have submitted multiple PRs and also open multiple issues. And regarding the build, so yes, I am familiar with the Golang. I have just completed some of the tutorials, and I am now somewhat comfortable with the Golang, and also in the related to the GitHub actions. So I have worked on my personal projects in the past, so I know how to implement the YAML files, and also how we can implement different types of workflows in the project. So yes, I'm looking forward for the guidance on how I can contribute in the Meshery CI.
Okay. Thanks, Karan. Last call, I think we had a call out for a bunch of folks, and If you, yeah, sorry, it's highly encouraged that you join the next CI call as well. If we don't get to any item for you today, most probably we would get to an item by next call next week. So thanks for that introduction, Karan. So out of other folks, does anyone else want to go?
Hey, am I audible?
Yeah, Aditya, you're on.
Sudhansh, I'm Sudhansh.
Okay, I thought someone else
Okay. Oh,
introduced himself.
though it's my not in this first time in this meeting, but I can go. Like my name, myself Sudhanshu Dasgupta. I'm a web developer and a bit experience. I have a knowledge on cloud computing platforms, and I'm a pre-final year student. And I've been contributing in layer 5 past 3 weeks, and yeah, like more to go. That stuff. Thank you. It's nice.
Thank you, Sudhanshu. Have you already gotten your hands on any of the issues or PRs?
Yeah, I've been working on some and I've already raised some PRs also.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so we are 15 minutes after. I'll start with the for the folks I didn't reach. Please introduce yourself in the chat because we have a lot of new names over here. So okay, that being said, let's move on to the first item, which is a standing agenda item that we talk about, and it's the Meshery test plan. So what's Meshery test plan? If you open the link that is given over here, you'll see that we have two spreadsheets inside of here. One is this one, the and the other is this one. So I'll go over what this one is first. So as I said, Meshery has a lot of components, Meshery CTL, Meshery CI. By CI, I mean that we have workflows, and we have Meshery CTL UI as a client, then you have Meshery server, then you have the other adapters and so on and so forth. So since we have so many components, this spreadsheet is like a matrix, like n cross and matrix for all of those permutations and combinations of all of those components, and what all test scenarios can there be, and for all those test scenarios, what is the expected outcome and what's the actual outcome. This particular so if you're like getting started with Meshery, this is the thing that I actually talk about every time. Is if you're testing out anything, so on the first few rows you'll see something as basic as installing Meshery through a curl command, right? So you don't need to even do any code for this thing. So if you perform this action and you don't get what is written in the expected outcome, you can file an issue that there is a deviation. And if you do get what the expected outcome is, you can write that down on the actual outcome. So it's a community effort, this particular spreadsheet, and basically the task is to keep it as updated with the with the current state of what the project is. As the project moves fast, it basically loses track of what the spreadsheet state was. So so it starts off with things like a simple Meshery CTL, and then it goes on to stuff like Meshery CTL command. So for example, if you do Meshery CTL system logs on your system, do you get this expected outcome, which is tail all the Meshery pod logs, or is it something else? If that's the thing, then basically you can confirm the behavior. In a lot of these rows, actually, I'm not confident that the behavior would be what we expected. There are all like 235 rows. So yeah, so usually what we used to have a while back, since since we have limited resources, limited time and limited energy, so we stopped doing those sessions. But we used to do these sessions where few people used to pick rows from, let's say, X row to Y, and they used to go through all those test scenarios to make sure that what the expected behavior is actually the actual behavior as well. So so yeah, if you want to, if you while testing things out, it's a good spreadsheet to have handy so that you actually know what you should expect. So for example, if you are on UI and you go into traffic mesh from the dashboard, from the configuration, from the lifecycle page, and from the lifecycle page, if you try to install this, do you is this what the this should be the experience? If this isn't, it means you can file an issue. So the quickest way to file I mean, it kind of looks daunting to go through all 20 to 50 rows, which I understand. So yeah, you don't have to go through all of them. Just get an idea of what these rows represent and what they're actually testing and all. So at the end of these, we have the adapters, which I would be talking about after I talk about the next spreadsheet, about what are the end-to-end tests and how those tests run, and how can you contribute there. So I think if we have, I don't know if we have Ayush. I mean, there are so many Ayushs that I think Ayush Sharma. I think we have him on the call. So he also he also has a task assigned to him related to these tests. So when I'll be talking about those, you'll get the context. So these are all the test scenarios, expected outcome, expected things, and uh, so yeah, the next thing is this spreadsheet. So of all the workflows that we have across Meshery and Meshery adapters and UI, CTL, so on and so forth. This tracker, basically, you don't have to go through all the .github directory in each of these repositories to find out what all the tests are and what all the builds are and when what is run and what is the trigger. You can just come over here and see what what particular thing runs on what particular trigger, what are the prerequisites, what is the area under test, what type of test it is, and so on and so forth. If you add any particular workflow, if you add any test, add anything, you have to add it over here. So if you add anything in the Meshery repo, you have to add it over here. If you add anything in the Meshery adapter repo, all the adapters are consolidated into one row because the tests as well as the builds are uniform across all of the adapters. So if you add a particular test or a particular build in one of those adapters, you have to, or at least someone have to do that for other adapters as well, unless there is a strong reason to not do so, which usually there isn't. So for example, there is a workflow which builds the adapter binary for multiple platforms. So we need that for all adapters. There are E2E tests which are uniform across adapters. Same goes for lint tests, build tests, and same goes for other. These two things I'll explain later what these component generation is. So yeah, so this is also a spreadsheet which you would have in handy if you are contributing to anything CI related or anything workflow related. There are hyperlinks as well to the actual workflow and what it does and all. So yeah, this is a good reference point. And I think if there isn't already the link to this particular spreadsheet, then there should be in every issue that is created or any PR that is created that makes any changes to anything related to the CI, so that this particular spreadsheet can be kept in sync with what's there in the actual currently running GitHub workflows. So that was an overview of, you can go through these spreadsheets. Instead of me manually going through this test does this, just come over or onto the spreadsheet. I have posted there is a link in the standing agenda item. So use that. And before I'll add the item of going through what end-to-end tests are after Abhi talks about, so that I can set him free. He can talk about what Cypress tests are. So if you are into UI, if you want to contribute to UI integration tests, he'll talk about that. And after that, I'll talk about the E2E tests and adapters. So I'll add my item after his, and I'll give him the mic now. So yeah, that was a standing agenda item. Now, Abhi, you can talk about Cypress.
Yeah. Just 1 minute. Yes, so I hope you are seeing the Meshery contributing guide, and this guide is particularly related to contributing to end-to-end test using Cypress. So we have two types of test in UI. One is Cypress test. One is end-to-end test, and second is the integration test. So in integration test, we assume that the server is off, and we just test the UI elements. So that's how it does. So if you have build the Meshery UI locally, so you could have build it on either 9081 or port 3000 if you are doing it for the development purpose. So Meshery integration tests as well as G2E run against port 3000, but specifically integration test that that doesn't rely on server. Actually, when you keep the server open, so some of the tests may fail as well. So because yeah, so so your I mean, the end-to-end tests or as well as integration tests expects your dev environment open, especially for UI. And end-to-end test also expects your Meshery server running. So more about Meshery end-to-end test in this talk. I'll paste the link of this talk in the chat after I finish talking. So that's a basically file structure of the Cypress, and inside these are the fixtures. As you, if you're into Cypress, so you know what fixtures are, but I'll be just covering it quick. That fixtures, whenever you are I mean testing testing things inside UI, so you don't always expect the server is behaving correctly. So either I mean, in one of the case, when we do integration test, we also expect that server is not at all running. So that's why you provide a response, like you mock that response structure and put it here in the fixtures, and you expect I mean, whenever you intercept one of the requests that is going to server, so you return these fixtures, right? So that your yeah, it is basically a kind of mocking mechanism. So secondly, I just talked about E2N and Cypress integration tests. So this is just a file system representation of that thing. We use plugin as well for file system, I believe. And then these are the custom Cypress command for logging with the none provider and some other things you might look into the code to know more. Other than that, I mean, these text written here will explain you more, even more about what's expected in the Cypress UI code portion. And there is another guide where it is discussed how you can manually run end-to-end test using Cypress, and that's how you do actually. So that's it from my side. Yeah. As Ashish was talking about the Meshery test plan, so these test plan are also, the UI end-to-end tests are also the part of the Meshery test plan. So yeah, if you are creating a test or writing a test, like you can always add it into the test plan as well. Other than that, we lack, I mean, we lack at least 90% of the code coverage, or even more, like 95 to 99% of the code coverage inside the Meshery UI. So as you are seeing, this is quite I mean, not fulfilling. So we require a lot of tests to be written inside the Meshery UI to test a lot of things that we do, and there is very less thing that is being tested right now. So actually, yeah, this is also a call for volunteer if you are interested in contributing. So this is one of the good first step into Meshery UI.
If anyone has any questions, you can ask Abi right now. We'll wait for a few seconds.
Yeah. If I want to start working on the Meshery UI from in beginner, what will the procedure going on?
Yeah, so yeah, you should read the README doc where it is written about how you can contribute to Meshery UI. So yeah, on a broader level, you have to build the server, and then you have to run a dev environment locally. So there should be a contributing guide here. So I think UI contribution flow. So if you read it, you'll understand a lot of things. And if you're still facing some problems, I think you can always DM. Sorry, you can always ask in public as well as DM. It's all fine. I'll give the link. I'll paste the link in the chat as well.
Yeah, thank you. And if I want to work on the Figma designs, then in the same is that same procedure for this also?
Figma access works a bit differently. As you're seeing, this is the open source project.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you want to get the Figma files or get access to the Figma workspace, so you have to first of all sign up.
I mean, there is a newcomers form where you sign up for a community member form, and then maybe you can ask in the public channel. I think there is you'll have to sign up. I mean, you have to be
Yeah,
approved
I already
in some
signed up,
ways.
and I already signed up, and I got the link of I got the Figma link, but I just want is there any previous work so I can refer this for designing purpose.
Yeah, there is a lot of previous work being done already. So I suspect that you don't have a Figma access. So actually, in order to get you a Figma access, you have to provide your email address. So
Okay.
you can ask it in the channel.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll give you the access there.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay.
Okay, I guess not. If you have questions later on, you can ask in the CI channel, you can ask in the UI channel, you can ask in the general channel, or you can always create a discuss form. So, yeah, thank you, Abhi, for giving the overview. So let's move on to. So although the call was supposed to be short, but I think I can go over a few of the items here. Is Aditya on the call? Is Aditya Subedi? I mean, there are a lot of other Adityas as well. Just checking. So if he's already on the call, he can get his item first. But I don't think that Aditya Subedi is not on the call. So I think we can talk about this item on the next call. And Ayush Sharma on the call? I'm trying to get the other items first before I move on with talking about other workflows. I, I don't know if Ayush Sharma is also on the call. Okay, so let me move on to what E2E tests and adapters are. So I have pasted, so I'll talk for like 10 minutes, 10 minutes, I guess, at max, then I'll stop. I'll open for questions regarding, so I cannot talk about all the workflows and all the other things, but I'll talk about adapters and more specifically the end-to-end tests and adapters. And and while I'm touching that, I might also touch some other lint workflows as well. So I'll try to touch as much as possible. And if you have any questions, then you can ask me after I stop talking. So most probably it will take 10 minutes. So let's talk about the end-to-end tests and adapters. So we have, if you go on to any repo, you can click on actions. You can see what are all the tests that we run. And from all these tests, either if you open the test plan, so for example, on the adapters, this list should look identical to you. So what is over here for each row is also there for is straight away sourced from here. You can click on any of these tests. You can see what their runs were, and more specifically, I would like to talk about a particular workflow, which is the E2E test workflow. So this this test does is we have a core workflow inside of Meshery. Inside of Meshery, we have inside of .GitHub workflows, we have a test adapters v2.yaml. So all the adapters need to run an end-to-end test. And what this end-to-end test does is it deploys Meshery server. And inside of adapters, when you make any change to the code, so these are service mesh related adapters. So when you make any change to the code, the core functionality of the adapter should not regress. So which is to say, if someone wants to deploy service mesh, let's say, or any other thing via the adapter, they should be able to do so. So what we do is when you create a pull request on any of the adapters, your PR is checked out, and a Docker container for that adapter is built. So with your changes. So if of course build will fail if your changes did anything that could have failed the build. So the build will fail. And even if build is successful, what it'll do is it'll spin up a Meshy server. So you have your server running, you have your adapter running. And if you go into the architecture deck, you'll find that there is a Meshy server and there is an adapter. There can be multiple adapters, and Meshy server has a one-to-one relationships with all the adapters. The purpose of an adapter is simple, just like adapter pattern across all of programming. A job of an adapter is to make sure that one component and the other component can talk to each other. In this particular case, that one component is Meshery and the other component is a particular service mesh. So Meshery does not hold any domain-specific knowledge for any particular service mesh. That job is for the adapter. So if you try to deploy a particular service mesh, let's say, and I'm saying the word service mesh a lot right now, but as for the last 8 months or 9 months, we have been opening basically kind of not away from the service mesh, but more general. So the adapters are specific to the service mesh, but out of like 150 or 160 or 200 things that you can use Meshery to deploy, you can use either if you have signed up for Meshmap in few days, maybe next week, it will be open for all, where you'll be able to see around like 200 components that you can design from Argo, from not just from those are not service meshes, of course. So across all the CNCF, there are a lot of CNCF projects, and you can design components of all those CNCF projects. You can configure those things and you can deploy via Meshery. When you do out of those 200, let's say 4 or 5 or 6 of them are service meshes. For those service meshes, you have these adapters. Why only for those 6 service meshes? So that for other things, we do not add a lot of functionality on top, but when we want to, we can do that via an adapter. So there is a standalone adapter whose only job is to make sure that so like if Istio supports virtual service and let's say it supports destination rule, we have the ability to add another thing on top of it, a capability that Istio doesn't natively support, but we can add on top of that. So, and that capability would be inside the adapter. So that was like, and Meshery talks to Meshery adapter via gRPC. So Meshery is the gRPC client in this case, and Meshery adapter is the gRPC server. So whenever a particular request that is supposed to be handled by an adapter comes to Meshery, it finds out which particular adapter this request should be delegated to, and then it delegates that request to that given adapter, and then adapter handles the request and then gives off the response. So that's the whole flow. So coming back to this particular end-to-end tests, we stand a Meshery server, and this Meshery server is the latest Meshery server. And then we create a Meshery adapter container from your checked out PR. And then the third step is we try to deploy a design. So when you go in Meshmap and you design something, so if you go in Playground right now and you, I think everyone might already have played with Playground. So this isn't the first time you're hearing about it, but so there are still a lot of things that are still, as I said, you would be able to design like 200, 300 things. I think I'm not logged in with the right credentials. Anyways, if you are logged in with the credentials and you have gotten access, you'll be able to access Meshmap, which I'm currently not, because I'm logged in with a different ID, which doesn't have access to Meshmap. And if you have filled up the sign up form, then you have the access. So coming back, so when you use Meshmap to design something and when you deploy it, that's a visual thing that you do, right? You deploy it via visual stuff. What happens in the background is that visual thing actually creates a design file, which somewhat looks like this, right? So in our end-to-end tests, these end-to-end tests do not, the one end of this test is not Meshery UI. Meshery UI is not at all involved in this particular thing, but we still need a design. So we generate it manually. So this is a YAML file, although in most of, because these tests are internal, so we have our design file. We call it a design file. And this design file represents the intent, just like in Kubernetes, the file represents the intent, and in a declarative way, you can deploy that resource. So for example, this represents the intent that I want to deploy an Istio mesh and in the Istio system namespace. And I have commented out this version because this version is actually filled dynamically inside of the GitHub action itself, the workflow itself. So coming back to this, we have started the Meshery server. We deployed an adapter using your checked out PR. Then we used this particular design file, and then we gave it to Meshery server. Meshery server looked at this. It says Istio mesh. And then Meshery server looked at the model. It said Istio. Meshery server understands that whenever I have something of Istio, I have to delegate that to Istio adapter, which it did. So it delegates the request to Istio adapter. The Istio adapter looks at the request and it understands what Istio mesh is, because only Istio adapter has a domain specific knowledge of Istio mesh, and it deploys your Istio service mesh. And after the service mesh is deployed, few assertions are made, and these assertions are basically things like whether this thing was deployed or not. So in this particular in Meshery, if you go inside of .github/workflow/test_adapters v2.yaml, you'll see the whole flow. You can go through it line by line and understand what it actually is doing. And in this last step, it actually check if all expected resources have started. So yeah, so for example, if deploying Istio mesh meant that there has to be, let's say, 3 pods, a pod named Istio egress gateway, a pod named Istio ingress gateway, a pod named Istio, which is the control plane. So this particular workflow at the end will make assertions that, did these pods come up? If these came up, are these running? If these are running, then good. Test passed. So even after your PR, we are still able to perform basic functionality, and that is one of the basic functionalities. And so the core workflow is inside of Meshery, but these workflows are actually run inside of Meshery Istio. And the way it is done is, if you will go into that particular E2E test, you'll find that the first job, there are 3 jobs. First job actually fills that version field that I had said it was commented out. The second job actually calls another workflow. So the workflow that is inside of Meshery core, this one, it's a callable workflow. It can be called in from other workflows. And because it had to be general purpose, that's why it was stored in Meshery, and all the adapters then call this workflow using particular parameters. So for example, when this workflow is called in Istio, then the expected resource is something like Istio egress gateway, Istio egress gateway. If I go to the same workflow in, let's say, Kuma adapter, well, what I'll find is, I think the name is different. Yeah. What I'll find is that what I'm expecting is Kuma control plane. So expected resource can differ. So this is like a function call, and this is like the function definition. So this is and the third step is we update the documentation. So there is a compatibility matrix that we maintain, and there might be some call to volunteers even on this, maybe in the UI call. I don't know, maybe. So here basically you can see the bunch of green ticks, a bunch of cross ticks. These are the results of those end-to-end tests. So for, let's say, a particular service mesh, Istio service mesh, so as I said, those tests run when you create a PR, but those tests also run when there is a release or when there is a PR merged to the master. So when there is a PR merged to the master, it triggers an edge release, and when a manual release is made, that's a stable release. So you can filter here on the edge channel and the stable channel to see. So on the edge channel, I can see that console is passing all the tests. It means the master branch is okay. Here I can see Nginx, there is an issue with that. So these assertions are actually failing. So I can go and I can check what's wrong, and I can debug. There are a bunch of ways to debug this thing, but yeah, I can debug. And same thing I can do with the stable channel. And here I can see, okay, so there's a problem in Linkerd as well. So any PR that breaks, or any dependabot, let's say PR that I merged, or anything else that breaks anything, is reported over here via those particular workflows. So this was one of those workflows. And the reason I talked about them is because they actually need a lot of improvement. So we might work on them in future. And yeah, these are the end-to-end test workflows. One other workflow was that that I was going to talk about is actually, so this build and release workflow. This is also common. So this is a common workflow across all of the adapters that you'd find. Is it is just you build the repo, and then you create a Docker container, and then you push it onto the stable channel. So yeah, and ci.yaml has this. ci.yaml is also general across all the adapters. So here you'll find things like the lint tests. If you have any familiarity with Golang, the lint tests basically give you, if you're not following idiomatic Go, if there are error checks that you did not do, if there is a, let's say, if variable which was declared but not used, there is you have misspelled something, all of these things are caught inside of the lint tests. the error checks, the static checks. Golang is rich in all these different utilities, which makes sure that you write idiomatic Go. And so these tests are also run. And as you can see in the trigger, these are also run in the when a pull request is made. So if there is a standing pull request, if it fails any of those tests, so for example, I can see that these are failing a lot of these tests. So the lint test is failing. It means something introduced by this particular PR is going to have problems. So if the lint test is failing, then usually that can be improved, but the build test should always pass. So here we can see the build and all is passing. The end-to-end test, these are the end-to-end tests that I was talking about. These are failing. And end-to-end tests also are run on different Kubernetes versions. So these versions that you're seeing. So I said, we start a Meshery server, we start the adapter checked out on your particular PR, and then we deploy the design, it goes to the adapter deploys it where? On the Kubernetes. So we also deployed Kubernetes inside of before doing all this. And this is the version of Kubernetes it was deployed to. And the reason this is versioned is because it may be the case that this particular service mesh stopped supporting a particular resource on X version of Kubernetes, but it still supports it onto the Y version of Kubernetes and so on and so forth. So there is a version incompatibility that is also caught over here. And as you can see, each of these rows contain the Kubernetes version as well. So like this particular thing was passing on to 23.13, but not on 25.3. So yeah, so this kind of helps us to debug on whether this is a version related issue or not. And so yeah, coming back onto the adapters, the lint tests are common across all the adapters. The build the build and release workflow kicks in when there is something pushed onto the master, so basically an edge or stable. So this tag basically, the tag, it would start from B when there is a release is made, and so whenever there is a release, we push it to the stable. So there is a stable Meshery Istio image inside of Docker Hub, and that at stable channel. And when there is a PR merged on pushes to the master, it is on the H channel. So, and these are common across all the other repos as well, like Meshery. And this other thing is that this structure is also uniform across all the adapters. So like for example, if I'm right now in the Kuma adapter and I literally replace Kuma with Istio, I should land upon Istio adapter, which I did. If I didn't, then that's an issue. So for example, here this contributor, what they did was they updated. So this is like a newcomers thing that is easy to get into. Like they did was update, build, and release to match Linkerd adapter. So Istio the workflow inside of Istio did not match the workflow inside of Linkerd. And as I said, all of these adapters have used the same exact functionality. Everything is uniform. The only thing that should differ is which is specific to a particular service mesh. Other than that, everything should be uniform. So that's what they did. So all these workflows should be uniform across all the adapters, at least all the adapters. Meshery can have its own stuff because that's Meshery server. And yeah, that was all about the what are all the workflows in adapter and how they run. So if you have any questions, now I'll stop. I said 10, but it extended to 16 minutes. If you have any questions regarding Meshry's architecture, regarding that end-to-end test workflow, there are asks actually regarding those test workflows that I was going to talk about, but I think we are already running out of time, so I'll leave that for the next call. So on the next call, there are some open tasks regarding adding another workflow, which I would be talking with Ayush on the next CI call, a particular workflow which will actually scrape an spreadsheet. So I hinted at the fact that we support like these 200, 300 models and stuff. And this is that particular spreadsheet from which everything is sourced. So all the projects that you see over here, these you would be able to design them using Mesh Map Designer or using Meshery Design Configurator, because Meshery will support they're configuring all these resources and also deploying these resources. So this is a spreadsheet. There are some tasks regarding automating a few of those things. So for example, if you, I'll quickly talk about what needs to be automated. So if Ayush doesn't pick it up by the next call and someone else wants to get their hands dirty on GitHub Actions, you can. So in the Meshery workflow, there is an inside of build directory, you'll find mesh model metadata.json. And here you can see, so, okay, yeah, so there's the PR was still not made. So I think, yeah, there is a So here you can see there's primary color, secondary color, shape, logo, URL, SVG color, and SVG white. So when you design something using Meshmap Designer, or when you use Meshery Design Configurator, things like how that Istio logo should look, that data is sourced from here, right? So, and these fields should be identical to what is there inside of the integration spreadsheet. I'll paste the link of the integration spreadsheet in the chat if you already don't have that. So here you can see that there are things like category is lowercase. They are all camel case. Subcategory, category, these are camel case. Primary color, secondary color, all of these things are camel cased. But if I go over here, these are not camel cased. These are, written in a human readable form kind of thing. So well, good first issue. So the zeroth issue is to make sure that these fields actually look exactly similar to what we have over in the integration spreadsheet. So if there is primary color lowercase over here, there should be primary color lowercase over here. But as you all can see, that this is a manual task. If tomorrow something, the field changes, you'll have to do that over and over again manually across all the adapters. This is just one of those adapters. So if I click replace Istio with Linkerd, I'll land up in the Linkerd adapter. Here also we have the same problem. So to remove that, there would be a workflow which would scrape this spreadsheet. Again, I'm out of time, so I won't be talking about the workflow, but just to hint at it, the workflow would scrape this particular spreadsheet, and dynamically, every time a change is made to this spreadsheet, it would dynamically source from there and make a commit inside of each of the adapters, updating this particular JSON file. Before we reach there, the zeroth task is to make sure that this JSON file, the fields inside of this JSON file look exactly like what is. So this capital P primary color has to change to what's inside of the spreadsheet. So this one, this is what it's supposed to look like, small, like basically camel case. So you don't even, I think there is already issue, there might have already been issue for this. If there isn't, okay, there is no issue. So you don't even need to create an issue for this. This is something so straightforward. So if you want to or maybe you can, if so that if two people don't start working on the same adapter, so just change these fields and create a PR. It will be merged within the seconds, because this thing is needed for like the past week or so, but the main guy had their exams, so that's why a few things were on hold. But as there are a lot of people, so there's a probability that some of you might be interested in getting on the first item, which was creating the workflow, and then before we go there, the zeroth item, which is to manually update this. Okay, that was a tangent. Coming back to whatever I talked about. If anyone has any questions, I'll pause for a few seconds, and then after questions, we'll end the call. So if anyone has any questions, this is your time.
Yeah, I just confirm one thing. Like when we submitting a PR, is it like all tests should be passed necessary?
Ideally, yes. Ideally, yes. But sometimes if someone introduced a bug, let's say, and that is unrelated, it can happen that you didn't do anything wrong, but the tests are failing because, well, someone introduced another, basically a lint bug in their PR, and that PR was merged because maybe that was an urgent item. So in that case, you can go to other PRs, and if you see that other PRs are also failing, then you can ask, basically, you can raise an alarm that please get this test fixed. And if your PR is urgent, then there's a 10% chance that it would be merged, even if the tests are failing. But after two things are checked: first, your PR is unrelated to the test, and second, your PR is urgent, so your PR cannot be waited unless, basically, your PR cannot be postponed. So if those things are, if there is a yes to both, then yeah, your PR can be merged.
Okay.
Any other questions? If you get any doubts later on as well, you can ask on the CI channel. That's always. I'll wait for 10 more seconds and then I'll do the ending thing, because the two action items are pushed onto the next call. So the people who are supposed to present them, I don't think they are present today. So it's good to push them onto the next call instead of me talking over what they had to present. So okay. So thanks everyone for joining in. This was supposed to be a half an hour thing, but I extended it. So if I haven't killed everyone out of boredom yet, then this is the time I'd drop off. If you have any doubts regarding how to contribute to anything, Newcomers Call is your way to go. Today was Newcomers Call, and most probably some of you might have been there. If not, then join the next one. There is a dev call that happens every Wednesday, so that's a good call to be in. And there will be a CI call next week as well. This was kind of an ad hoc call because there was a flux of newcomers, so we thought let's do an ad hoc call to let people get a hang of the CI part of the thing. If what Abhi talked about Cypress test made sense to you, then consider contributing there. There might be some open issues already. There are open issues on adapters as well. Adapters need some help as well because there are not a lot of contributors. Like there are 6 adapters, but and 4 people who contribute to them. So the ratio is pretty not good, right? So not even 1-to-1. So if you have, so what time will be the dev call on Wednesday? So the dev call, okay, I know the IST. I don't know the central time, so I'll have to do the conversion. The IST for the dev call is 8:30, and for anyone who for whom IST is irrelevant, please do the conversion on your own.
It's 9 CST.
Okay, thanks, Tarun. So, any other? If there are no other questions, I think we can close on right now. And thanks everyone for joining. Thanks everyone for joining, and we'll see you in the next call. Bye bye.
Thank you so much.